105.1 FM. This is Parenting Matters with myself, Safura Horton. Here in Parenting Matters, we bring you varied and interesting topics of discussion every week, all relating to families and children. We actively encourage listener participation and we always love hearing your views. Please do join in with the discussions or give us a call if you have any questions or comments. The number to call today is 01733 602 133, or you can send us a WhatsApp message on 07745 278 978. You can also message us, as always, on Facebook Live. Now, today we will be discussing the recent hijab debate in schools. Last month, Nina Lal, the head teacher of St Stephen's Primary School in Newham, London, imposed a hijab ban on pupils under the age of 8 in her school. More than 19,000 people signed a petition calling for this ban to be lifted. The ban was reversed. The chair of governors who championed the ban stepped down from his role a couple of weeks ago. Since then, Ofsted's Chief Inspector Amanda Spielman has intervened in the dispute between the parents and the head teacher. She's publicly supporting the head teacher, going as far as saying people use religion to actively pervert education. She's also quoted as having said, "Under the pretext of religious belief, people use educational institutions to narrow young people's horizons, to isolate and segregate, and in the worst cases to indoctrinate impressionable minds with extremist ideology." Very strong words there. Now, to discuss this topic with us today, I have two wonderful guests joining me on the show. But first of all, we're going over to Hussein Akhtar over the telephone. Now, Hussein is a retired inspector of schools. He has participated in Ofsted inspections in England. He was also a councillor in the London Borough of Harrow for 6 years. Hussein has been actively involved in community work as a social scientist and has long experience of evaluating institutional policies and practices in a variety of settings, particularly in the areas of equal opportunities and social justice. Hussein also writes regularly for local and national publications. He is now working for Harrow Council for Justice and Harrow Monitoring Group as a voluntary researcher. Welcome, Hussein.
Oh, hello. Hi, assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, Salaam. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine.
Good. So you heard my little introduction there on the topic today. Very harsh words, I would say, from Amanda Spielman, talking about agendas of isolation, segregation, extremism. What's her role in all of this?
I think it's a quite complex debate because at the moment we are talking about hijab and then about extremism. So I think one can put two things together. It looks like that what is coming from Ofsted HMCI is on both accounts, hijab and extremism. Mm-hmm. So I think that is what the debate is. I think it would be very interesting to understand briefly what are the responsibilities and functions of both the schools and Ofsted.
Yeah.
Now, schools, as we all know, are in a business of teaching children. The schools, and I'm talking about state schools, the authority for the schools is not the local authority, which is the council. It is not the DFE, and it is not Ofsted. But the authority for the school is the school's governing body.
Right.
Now, a school's governing body is independent. They can organize the work of the school as they wish, but within the framework and the legislation which commands the school, so they can do that. For example, they can't say we are not going to teach national curriculum, mm-hmm. but they can say how we are going to do it. So they can have their own arrangement and organization of teaching, so they can do that. So there's the independence on that. On other matters about like food, about dress, about the code of practice, about the ethos, and as I said, about organizing the school's activities, which include both the pastoral and academic curriculum. Governors are totally independent. They can decide whatever they wish to within the framework which I have specified.
Right.
Now, Ofsted, when we go for inspection, we do not question what governors have done unless it is something illegal.
Right.
We look at the school as it is. We look at the effectiveness of the policies and of the work which the management is doing, and basically focusing on three factors. One, the quality of teaching. Second, the quality of learning. And the third one is the management.
Yeah.
Now, there's a fourth aspect as well, which we call SMSC, which is social, moral, spiritual, and cultural development of people. So that is another thing which we look at. Now, for example, we can ask a school that, look, have you done any mapping of SMSC across the curriculum? In other words, all these four values, are they promoted through the subjects like English, like math, like history, like whatever it might be? Mm-hmm. So I think we can ask that. We never question in terms of what the school is doing about their dress, whatever policy they have, unless it is something which is obscure and, as I said, which is not within the framework, and what they are eating, unless it's unhealthy eating or something. Mm-hmm. We don't question about various policies, about the uniform policies, or about the structure of how and when people come and in what form they come. Do they come by train, walk by foot? So we don't look into that. Yeah. We look at the overall big picture, which is about the effectiveness of the school. So I think that is very interesting to understand that. Now, as far as the Ofsted is concerned, I think, as I said, Ofsted does not involve itself into the local practices.
Right.
Now, I can give you some examples of it, which are very interesting. Mm-hmm. For example, some years back, I inspected a secondary school in London, which was predominantly black populated. So there were black people mostly.
Okay.
This is school, the head teacher and some of the governors, they have certain belief in a section or cross-section of Christianity. I don't know what it is called, but they were quite deeply committed to it. And what was happening was that they had this candle which goes on all the time in the head teacher's office. Classrooms had medallions, various sort of display, mm-hmm. and many lessons started with Lord's Prayer. And it was not a faith school.
Right.
It was a state school. Inspectors just noted it with interest. We never raised any question about it, that this is a radicalization or is it involvement and overtaken by Christian ethos or anything like that, because that was not our brief. So we didn't do that. In another example, I remember that it was a primary school, and in lunchtime, quite often, we saw a group of girls sitting separately from others on a table. And they had this typical headband, which normally Jehovah's Witnesses use. So we asked the school, why have you give them any punishment or something? They said, no. It is the parents who wish their children to have lunch separately because they don't want to mix up.
Right.
Now, we did not say to them that, look, you're radicalizing these children, you're depriving them, you're interfering with their freedom or something. We say, okay, if that is the arrangement between the school and the parents and it's working, fine. So there's no problem. Yep. So I think the independence of the governing body on these examples, how they do it, and the Ofsted attitude towards it is quite obvious.
So Ofsted doesn't really intervene in uniform policies in schools. That's entirely up to the governors and the school itself.
Whatever they wish to do. I'll give you another example, which is a very interesting example. I inspected a secondary school in Middlesex. Now, that secondary school was doing fine. We were totally amazed to see that the girls, and it's a secondary school, so it's a sixth form as well, the girls were wearing mini skirts, all of them. And we said to the head teacher that, is there any reason? Is that something which you have asked children to do that? Because it might be a risk factor. They have to go out and they're grown up and all that. And head teacher said, no. It is something which parents, modernization and parents wish, and therefore we allow them to wear this, though we are aware that they are mini skirts.
Right.
Now, just this example alone tells that as far as the dress is concerned or the uniform is concerned, it is something which is decided between the school, the parents, and the governing body decide about it, and they can do that. Now, along with that, education all along, for as long as I have been in education and well before that, they emphasize parental involvement.
Yeah.
They say we welcome parents' views, we welcome parents' involvement in the learning of their children and in valuing and promoting the ethos of the school. So there is a strong emphasis on parents and parents' wishes, which include the social, moral, cultural, whatever the wishes might be, they are there. So I think on all those lines, if one looks from that perspective, then this debate about hijab or extremism looks very, very odd. It is not Ofsted brief at all to look into these things. So I think I'm like many other people, I'm shocked and amazed that HMCI has taken these decisions.
So given everything you've said and all the examples that you've given us, Amanda Spielman having intervened, why do you think, from your perspective, why do you think she's intervened in this manner?
I think it is again a complex situation. The situation has been that for the last many years, and if you go back to early 60s, 1960s, somehow education has been used to highlight what is seen is social instability. At that time, it was through immigration.
Right.
And in 1966-67, there were concerns expressed by politicians saying that immigration is a great social problem of the century. Now, they were talking about immigration. They thrust this on schools, and then there was a very interesting dispersal policy where if the number of Asian children in certain schools increased by number, they have to be dispersed to another school. So that was used, immigration was used in 1966-97 as a leverage to highlight immigration, which of course was a very controversial issue. 1980s, another head teacher, Ray Honeyford, it's all public information. Ray Honeyford raised the question and said the multiculturalism in the school somehow is hindering the education for the white children. Now that was like Anna Powell's bloodbath speech, and it went wild, and the right-wing media and the politicians, everybody picked it up, and this vibrated for many, many years. Resulting that in 1986 or 88, there was a report which was called Burnage Report. Now that Burnage Report came from a school where there was a Bangladeshi boy who was murdered in the playground. Now that was a big national issue, and the whole scenario came, and the report said, there is this institutional racism, there is this and that. So I think that was done. And then lately, we have a school scenario in Birmingham, where a conspiracy theory, which later on came out as a bogus information, which was that some people are trying to take over some schools, some Muslim people are trying to do that. So that was another scenario where the schools were used for some kind of negativity, which is so obvious. So I think education has some kind of a history where education and schools are used for political debate or political purposes, where, as I said, the immigration became a point. Now, this whole thing got intensified recently because of what happened in EU campaign. And as is general information, immigration was a key point, and within immigration, the people were talking about Muslim people coming, and so the target, scaremongering, the alarming, the fears were raised about various factors, and that was very high debate in EU campaign. So I think it happens from there. And this thing about hijab, actually, it started in Europe at the time when this EU campaign was going. And they were the people who raised this issue first. And they raised the issue about hijab, about women wearing abaya, and all sorts of things. Now, frankly speaking, honestly speaking, working in the community for such a long time in the mainstream, not just Muslim, but wider community, I know for sure that when it comes to things like dress, the population in Europe or in UK, people don't give it a damn as to what people wear.
Right.
Still, it is a decent dress. You can wear whatever you want to. You can have skirts, you can have trousers, you can have jeans, you can have whatever it is. And the schools are allowed girls to wear skirts. Now, technically speaking, one can say, you are sexualizing them, the girls telling them that you are a girl because boys are not wearing the skirt.
Yeah.
But it's not the case. You do that. So I think people are not worried about what you wear or to that extent what you eat.
So you think there's a bigger agenda at play here then? It's not just about the actual hijab.
That's right. And I think what actually happened is that people have made these things like hijab and dress as a symbol of Muslim value. The debate is about accepting or not accepting Muslim value. It is not about a piece of cloth.
Yep.
It is about accepting or not accepting Muslim values, and that is where the resistance to it, that is where the politicization of it comes, that is where the far extreme right comes into it, and media and all that. So I think the debate is not about a piece of cloth at all.
Yep.
Nobody says that. It is about the value which it stands.
Yeah.
And the question is whether we accept Muslim value or not.
Yeah.
So it is a highly political situation, unfortunately. Nothing to do with education.
Yeah.
It has no education validity whatsoever.
Okay.
So I think it is very concerning and alarming.
Yeah. It is very concerning indeed. Hussein, do we know the statistics of young girls who wear the hijab in mainstream schools?
I don't think if that figure is available.
Right.
I don't think so, because nobody has counted it, so there's no head count on it. But I think what is happening, and again there is associated information about that, you might know, or your listeners might know, there was a review recently last year which is called Cassie Review. Now the Cassie Review was commissioned by the previous Prime Minister, and it was about to look at what they called deprivation within dense Muslim populated areas like Birmingham, Bradford, Manchester. And this Cassie Review came out with many recommendations, which were all throwing all kind of negativity on the community without addressing why things are as they are. And they were talking about the deprivation, lack of language, people not speaking English language, there's a need to do that, people have to take an oath of loyalty to the crown and all. That sort of review came out. Now that review, within it, had the evidence base which goes back to education. So I think it's a vicious circle which is going on for the last couple of years, where things are happening, but the thrust of all that is to somehow question certain people, create a scaremongering about them, having the negativity, and then, of course, there is a political dimension because there are people, many people with Muslim names, there are Asian people who would like to sort of take side of what the institutions are doing and what the authorities are doing for their own reasons. And those people seems to giving some kind of reinforcement to what has been said and done. But they are only few, a fraction, small fraction. Rest of the people, and again, I mean, I must give a credit, people in educationists, because of course I have worked extensively with the very high caliber HMIs, who are the people who are the cream of education, and others, curriculum development and all that. All those people, they don't look into these petty things. They are sophisticated thinkers. They look think seriously. They are concerned in education about education standards, about the welfare of the children, about how to provide better job opportunities, and how to make, if you like, better social models for the society which we have. So I think majority of people in this country are not of that view. It is a small group who is banded to fall in the hands of right wing, and of course substantial supported in a way because right-wing media, far-right media I should say, are very good in recycling all that, and has been for half a century. So I think this is a vicious circle, which I think as a social scientist I'm very worried that is not good for the British society, for the people who are living here, not us but others as well, and it creates a very negative environment to be educated, to live in, to work, and whatever it is. So it's a quite concerning situation.
Yeah. So from an educational expert perspective, there are far bigger things to worry about than just a piece of cloth.
Of course.
Little girls are wearing in school. How can Muslim communities challenge this sort of, attempted ban? How can we move forward from this?
I think what seems to be happening so far, which I can understand, is that when some issues like this comes about extremism, about hijab, people immediately go defensive. And what they do is they try to explain, no, it's good, it's not religious, we do that, girls are wearing hijab because mom is doing. They try to justify, but not appreciating that all those things are very well known. People who are criticizing and taking these steps, they know far better than other people as to what is the significance of a hijab, dress, diet, or whatever it is. So it is not bad. I personally feel that this whole thing is well seated in political arena, and it is because people want to bring this question about hijab, about extremism, about that. Politicians can't do that for obvious reasons. They can't afford the backlash. So I think their job has been done by some other people. So I think, but debate is about political. I'm very surprised that while these statements are coming from HMCI, there has been no political reference either by the shadow education people or by the Labour Party about that what you're saying and what is happening is not good for the community. There is no public statement as such coming out from the Labour Party.
Right.
And I'm very surprised. Why is that? And I think, in my view, it is that people have to approach their elected representatives, the people who seems to be representing them from all sorts of people, Muslims, non-Muslim, whatever it is, MPs, councillors, and ask them as to why Labour is silent about all these matters. And I think they have to come out, because if you and me come out with and other people, it is seen as a marginal activity. We are supposed to do that. I think in all good things, it has to be the wider community has to come out and condemn these kind of strategies, which are crucial because it is not good for education, it is not good for children, it is not good for parents. So I think in my view, the way forward is to approach the representatives from the opposition, because the administration is part of it. So we have to approach opposition and say to them, why you're silent? Why you're not saying anything about it? And I'm sure that might make a difference.
Yeah. I mean, clearly Muslim communities can challenge this sort of thing, can't they? I mean, we saw that 19,000 people signed a petition, and actually that, and because of the petition, the ban was reversed. So clearly we do have, as a Muslim community, we do have some power.
Yes, but I think we are talking about a sort of wide issue. Because when it came to one school, okay, you can have a petition, you go there, you can even have a demonstration, and perhaps the school will change its mind. But HMCI involved in this sort of thing is not something which can be resolved by a petition, because it is more deeper than that. It is well seated, it is well institutionalized, it is an institutional issue, not about just one school. So that has to be tackled at that level. And that level, unfortunately, has to be the political level, because that is where it's coming from.
So if it becomes more normalised and more mainstream in across schools, across all over the United Kingdom, that's when we need to sort of start taking worrying more actually, and doing more to perhaps liaising with the MPs and doing what we can on a political level to try and change the situation.
That's right, because one of the things which HMCI has lately said about extremism is that she's asking the head teachers to confront those who they think might have extremist behavior. Now, schools and the head teachers are not the controlling bodies. They are not the people whose job it is to evaluate the behavior of the parents and the community. I mean, they can do it if they want to the children, but they are not there to do that.
They're there for the children, not for the parents.
No. So they can't do this sort of what generally say. And that is the reason that teachers' unions have been very strict about it. NUT has taken very big step about totally discrediting preventive strategy. They had a resolution passed saying that we discredit and disown this policy. We are not going to operate it. And that was a very bold decision. So I think the trade unions are, and many teachers and head teachers, I mean, honestly, They think that, look, we are in the business of teaching. School is about teaching. We are not here to monitor behavior, to monitor what is in people's mind and head. Especially, the demand is coming from the Home Office, not coming from Education Department.
Yeah.
It's coming from the Home Office.
Yeah.
And because it is coming from the Home Office, it is a controlling mechanism rather than improving the situation.
Yeah. Hussein, thank you very much for joining us today. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I know there's lots more that you could have said on the topic. But, you know, the bottom line, I suppose, is that it's a matter for individual schools to decide on how to accommodate their children. And, you know, Ofsted is not there to intervene, with regards to uniform and things like that. They're there to maintain, the education level. So, yeah, thank you very much for sharing your expert advice with us today. And hopefully we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we're just going to go to a very quick ad break and we'll be right back very shortly.
Stay tuned to Salaam Radio after this short ad break.
Do you or someone you know have questions about Muslims? Want to find out about true Islam and get past the headlines? Then come along to visit my mosque open day on Sunday the 18th of February at Masjid Khadija and Islamic Centre. Everyone is welcome. All faiths, no faith, all ages. Join us in a friendly atmosphere for a cup of tea and a bite to eat. Learn about the charity work we do, observe Muslim prayer, take away free books. This year we also have a great interactive storytelling session for kids at 1:30 p.m. For more information, go to visitmymosque.eventbrite.com. Visit My Mosque Open Day, Sunday the 18th of February at Masjid Khadija and Islamic Centre, 311 to 313 Cromwell Road, Peterborough, PE1 2HP. Pop in and see us between 11 and 5. Let's get to know each other better.
Sadly, millions of orphans living in the poorest countries lack the necessary support for a healthy childhood. These children have to endure lives of hardship without the basic necessities that would help them to grow, to learn, to live. Let's show them that we do care. Let's brighten up their future. Call 0161 225 0225 or visit humanappeal.org.uk.
Third world and developing countries are home to some of the most vulnerable children on the planet. Malnutrition, severe lack of medical aid and access to clean water are just some of the horrific challenges faced by orphans across Africa and Asia. Children of Adam, a Peterborough charity, need your help to bring aid to these orphans for just £25 a month. To sponsor an orphan or assist with other projects, please call 0300 321 0032 or visit www.childrenofadam.net.
Do you own a restaurant or takeaway? Cater Fair is an expert supplier of new and used commercial catering equipment. Visit caterfair.co.uk for quality equipment on sale at the lowest prices, or call us on 01733 310 115 or visit us at 11 Royce Road, Fengate, Peterborough.
Need a great place to chill out? Look no further than The Lounge for quality food and drinks at a great price. Try our varied menu: pasta, seafood, burgers, grills, salad, soup, rice and sides. Also hot and cold drinks, milkshakes and mocktails. Leave room for our exquisite desserts. The Lounge, 417 Lincoln Road, Peterborough. Call 01733 709 306 to order for delivery. The Lounge, friendly service with a great atmosphere.
Gems and jewels. Wise sayings, interesting events, and moral lessons from Islamic history. The signs of an ignorant person.
Abu Darda radiyallahu anhu said, "The signs of the ignorant one are three: self-conceit, much talk in that which does not concern him, and forbidding others from something that he himself commits."
This is Salaam Radio, Peterborough's Muslim community radio. Broadcasting on 106.2 FM and online.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Parenting Matters with myself, Safura Horton. Today we're talking about the recent hijab debate in schools that's been all over the news. Some of the listeners who've just tuned in, just to bring you up to speed, last month the head teacher of St Stephen's Primary School in Newham, London, imposed a hijab ban on pupils under the age of 8 in her school. More than 19,000 people signed a petition calling for this ban to be lifted, and the ban was reversed. But the chair of governors who championed the ban stepped down from his role a couple of weeks ago. Now, Ofsted's Chief Inspector Amanda Spielman has since intervened in this dispute between parents and the head teacher, and she's actually publicly supporting the head teacher. So there's been a lot of criticism about that. Now, talking to us here today in the studio, we have Samina Aziz. Samina trained as a teacher. She's worked in several secondary schools. She was a founding member of Iqra Academy for Girls in Peterborough, where she was also co-principal. Samina has written the safeguarding policies for madrasas, that's supplementary schools, which have been endorsed by the local Safeguarding Children's Board. She has also completed research regarding young people's experiences of their madrasa education and has recently presented a paper at an international conference titled Rethinking Islamic Education in Europe. Welcome, Samina.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us today. I mean, I know that when we've talked about this before, we've had lots and lots to say on this topic, and it's something that the Muslim community obviously feel quite strongly about. It's good to speak to somebody who's had some training and experience of working in schools as well, and have some knowledge of safeguarding policies. One thing I wanted to bring up, there's from what I could tell, the research that I've done, there's been no widespread study or you could call it a consultation with Muslim parents, to find out how they feel about the hijab, no poll or anything like that. How do we find out what their views are about the actual situation? Surely we need to be asking them.
That's a good question, actually. And I think you can link to Hussein's previous talk about the role of the Ofsted inspectors. I agree totally with what Hussein has said, that the Ofsted inspector's role is to hold schools accountable for the level of education, management of the schools, etc. But Ofsted also look at how good a governing body, or critical friend a governing body is. They look at parents' voice and pupils' voice that schools take into account, and the community voice, because they all make up the school. They're a family of a school, whether they're under the local authority or not. So when we talk about parents or having a look at the study, I think there are two aspects of the study. One is a long-term study to gain statistics, as you've said, that Amanda Spielman said that the hijab leads to or isolation or segregation, indoctrination. These are wide sweeping statements. They have to be based on some type of research, facts, statistics. That type of study needs to be taken place. It has to be widespread. It has to be commissioned, or such sweeping statements have to be based on some facts. So you can have these studies taking place, which will then consult parents, community members, students across the UK if you're making such sweeping statements. Secondly, for the school to ban the hijab is a big sweeping statement itself. It has to be based on some facts. Why did the head teacher, this school is reported to be the best primary school in Britain. That's right. Best primary school. This is what the Ofsted inspection is saying. This school is predominantly children of the ethnic minority are attending this school. It has, the young girls have attended. Now we need to know what statistics of young Muslim girls, A, make up the cohort or the population of the school, and B, we need to know how many of those Muslim girls under the age of 8 actually do wear the hijab. And why has it prompted the head teacher, this best school in Britain, primary school in Britain, why has the head teacher been prompted to ban the hijab? Now, for any such action to take place, how, the head teacher should have consulted the parents. Have letters been sent out? Have parents been consulted? Have the concerns been shared with the parents?
Yeah.
Or has it been just, we're banning or even banning the girls from wearing the hijab? Have letters? We don't know. We all I know is what's been reported in the media. Secondly, it's very important to hear pupils' voice. Has the head teacher undertaken any type of consultation with the pupils? Every school is meant to have a student council body. Members of the student council body have to be representing their form or year group, etc. Have they been spoken to? Have these young girls under the age of 8 come forward and said, we are forced to be wearing a scarf, we do not want to wear the hijab, our parents are forcing us to wear a hijab, and something should be done about it? If that is the case, then you have a basis to found such a ban on. If that is not the case, then why has the head teacher taken this initiative? She knows that the Ofsted inspectors will be coming back. I mean, this is an outstanding school. So, as Hussein has said, maybe it's a bigger political game. We don't know. Certainly, if you look at the Trojan horse incident in Birmingham, it's a hoax. But when you Google Trojan horse, the hoax bit doesn't come up. Everything else comes up before some article saying, it's a hoax, the letter was a hoax, etc.
It's sad that sometimes these things are blown out of all proportion, and the damage has been done. There's no damage limitation. I think it's been splashed all across the news. People have stepped in and said X, Y, Z. That all sorts of awful things about it. And even if it turns out that it was nothing, and that they'll go back to the girls wearing hijab, unfortunately the damage will have been done, and
it shapes
the community
public opinion.
Is tainted. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
It shapes public opinion.
Yeah. There's something I'm going to ask you now that's a little bit controversial, but does wearing a hijab make anyone less integrated? Because there is a view out there, isn't there?
Well, coming back to this school instance, for example, it's the best primary school, best on several regards, but the young people attending the school may have worn hijab before. Has that hindered the outcome of these young people or the school? Now, I think this is a bigger debate. Amanda Spillman has sort of categorized it into hijab leading to segregation, isolation, indoctrination, and not upholding British values. Now, if we look at this whole British value, extremism, hijab, religion, indoctrination debate, actually, Amanda Spillman, head of the Ofsted inspecting body, is not catering for those British values. British values are democracy, respect of law, tolerance, freedom of speech, and everything else.
Well, one of the British values I've got here is to promote mutual respect for and tolerance of those with different faiths and beliefs. So actually, they're not upholding
it's not.
I mean, British value.
If Amanda Spillman wants to be an exemplar upholder of British values, this is her time to be that. She should be saying it is individual's choice. What this argument is taking away the freedom of choice that parents can exercise and young people can exercise regarding what they wear. Now, the school uniform policy of this school does not state no scarf, no hijab, and there's been no consultation. So there's no mutual dialogue. There's no, promoting tolerance and respect. Then, so parents are now having to, or this ban promotes this freedom to be taken away from parents, to be taken away from young people. Where is the British value in that regard? I think that if it's a British value, and when you're suppressing a particular community, when you're taking the rights away from them that are every person's right, then what you're doing is you're leading them onto the pathway of extremism. That injustice, that social injustice, the feeling that you are being deprived, whereas other community members aren't, leads to you feeling isolated, feeling segregated. then that leads to the pathway of radicalization and extremism.
Yeah.
So I think Amanda Spielman really needs to rethink about her response to this.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand. She stands by the head teachers. She wants the head teachers to uphold their decisions, because a leader is someone who is seen to be firm. When they make a decision, it should be in the best interest of everybody, and that decision should be accepted once it's brought in. But in this case, it hasn't been the case. And British values examples should be shown by the leaders at the top.
Absolutely. Now, if girls themselves insist on wearing the hijab at whatever age, primary, secondary, whatever, should their parents or their schools demand that they remove it?
Again, it comes back to the British values debate. If it's exercising your freedom to exercise what you wear, how you treat yourself, how you think, what you think, then no, under the British value system, you can't. You can't take that right away from young people or adults, anyone in the community. So if I was an 8-year-old, I wanted to wear the scarf, if someone was to tell me I can't wear it, it would make me really strong in my persistence to wear it.
Yeah. And we know all 8-year-olds can be very headstrong and
very
dig
headstrong.
their heels in, especially if you tell them not to do something. Because, I'm just thinking about, the times that we live in. I mean, we do have situations whereby perhaps the mothers aren't wearing the hijab, but the girls choose to adopt it for themselves, either because their friends are wearing it or another relative is, or they've seen it, or it's just something they like, At that age, I guess they're not really exploring their religious identity at a deep level. But the fact that they feel, strong and confident in their identities and are happy to be seen wearing the hijab, I mean, why should anyone want to take that away from that child? So, that's something to think about.
I'm amazed at how quickly children develop their personalities. Individuality. If you go into a preschool, nursery setting, you will see 2.5-year-olds. They have their own personalities. Individuality is just it just stares you in the face. And maybe if you've got one child at 2.5 or 18 months old, maybe it's not, you don't recognize it as much. But if you've got a group of 5 or 6 children, or maybe more, you will tell that their identity, or not identity, their individuality is there. Now it's up to the young person to exercise their rights and freedom, and it's a right to explore. I know when I was slightly older, before taking on my hijab, I explored it. One day I'd wear it, the other day I wouldn't. It'd be, my hair would be fully covered, it wouldn't be fully covered. But that journey was my journey to explore. I wasn't forced to wear it, and I wasn't not forced to wear it. It was something I explored for myself, and it took several years. But it was something I felt empowered. I felt in control of. And if you're taking that control away from this young person who wants to, then it could lead into dangerous territories.
Absolutely. It does seem quite hypocritical that, we live in an age now where children are allowed to explore their sexual identities at school, younger and younger. We're reading about it all the time. And yet when it comes to religious identity, I mean, this is exactly the same thing. Children are not allowed to explore their religious identity, and yet they're allowed to explore their sexual identity at that age. So it seems as though it's quite hypocritical. Now, moving along, some would argue that because we're living in a secular society, we should discourage girls from wearing the hijab here in the UK. And what's your opinion on that?
There have to be reasons of why one should discourage wearing a hijab. I mean, you asked me whether it leads wearing a hijab leads to integration or disintegration. Well, a hijab is a piece of cloth. It covers the hair, does not cover the brain. Integration is based on equality, equal access to other people. It is based on having equal rights, equal opportunities, equal ability to do what individuals want to do. I don't think that wearing a hijab or jilbab leads to individuals not being integrated within a society. I'm quite surprised, actually, because when I was growing up, to buying a scarf, you had to go to Asian shops. But now, scarves I generally buy from mainstream shops. And it's become part of everybody's dress.
Yeah.
People wear a scarf. You've got people who want to dress up a little, they wear a scarf around the head, or it's just something that people wear, similar to what the same scarf a Muslim is wearing and a non-Muslim is wearing, or, you know, a person of no faith is wearing. So I don't know what, I mean, even the short shirts, you know, they're worn across, I think. And if you look across the globe, young people's dress sense is trousers and tops and scarves, whether in a Muslim country or a non-Muslim country. So I don't think dressing or a dress, and jilbabs don't have to be black abayas, they could be worn as dresses, long dresses, etc.
Yeah.
So I don't know where this debate or this thought is coming in, that a jilbab or a long dress or modest dressing does not lead to integration.
Yeah.
Leads to isolation.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the sort of stuff that's going around on social media and the sort of views that you read online, you know, you read about things like, you know, people have this view that because it's a woman covering up, that it's a sign of oppression, and that's why, you know, people feel that there's no place for it in a secular society. But, you know,
I think we can overcome that through dialogue. People are, if we see there are only 9% of the population that make up Britain from all ethnic minorities or non-white British, only 9% of the population. Most of this population live within the inner city areas. You've got white British population living in rural areas who may never have contact with non-white British people. I think more with integration to work, there has to be more dialogue. People need to be in communication a lot more. And I found that people are not averse to meeting new people. They may be shy, they may be initially awkward, but people want to find out about others. And the political correctness of not offending another person hinders, is a barrier to people wanting to know answers to questions. So I think there needs to be more contact, more dialogue, and Mosque Open Days, which are coming up, are a brilliant avenue, and positive feedback has been received previously, that it leads to a lot better understanding.
Definitely. Now, coming back to the actual hijab itself, you know, Muslims are a very diverse group. You have, you know, Muslims who wear the hijab, Muslims who don't wear the hijab. You have parents who would wish for their daughters to wear it, and some who actually would actively discourage their daughters from wearing it. Now, you know, if schools are going down this route of banning the hijab, you know, bearing in mind that Muslims are such a diverse group, should the same blanket ban be applied to all Muslim children? It just seems really unfair.
I think banning a scarf is not part of a British value, does not represent British values. So I wouldn't really go down seeing a ban across Britain, British schools, about that young girls under 8, above 8, excuse me, can't wear a scarf. Yes. So it's yes. Muslims are diverse, and I think we should unpack this a little in terms of a cultural. Culturally, we should unpack it a little. Muslims came over in the 50s, 60s. Families joined 60s, 70s. First generation was born sort of 70s, early, late 70s. And then a lot of focus was placed on retaining the home culture, the myth of return, that will return back, and children should understand their culture and should not, should be able to fit right back in, which led to a lot of parents saying and doing lots of things to young people, forcing them into sort of cultural values, overtaking religious values. That first generation, I could see many Muslim girls coming to school wearing the scarf, going into toilets, taking the scarf off, and then going home wearing the scarf before going back home. Now, there was no understanding. Parents were saying doing this because they thought it was religion. And the young person was thinking, is this the religion that I'm being forced to? There was no choice there. I think that generation growing up, being forced to do things or having to conform, led to this isn't the religion I want to live. Now, 10, 20 years later, they begin to understand the difference between culture and religion.
Yeah.
Now, it's that understanding that has to be developed within communities. Some communities, you're right, they bring up children based on religious values with the true logical understanding. Other communities still are quite far behind. Culture is more rife. And parents themselves don't understand what is culture and what is religion. So I think for us to move forward, we need to educate ourselves the difference between what is culture and what is religion.
Absolutely.
And I think that mosques and madrasas and aunties' homes can play a big part in this education. Young children attend a mosque class, a religious education class in the afternoon, evenings, weekends. And that's where they can ask the questions, and their teachers could answer those questions of what is religion. What does Islam say about hijab? And the choices that religion gives to people. And in young people, when they make these informed choices, are in a better place to create their own identities.
Yeah.
And this is something that this is something I would say that Amanda Spielman is not hasn't understood, the word of choice. So whether young people choose to wear a scarf or choose not to wear it, that choice should be that young person's or their parents'.
Yes.
Now, she talks about muscular liberalism. I didn't know that liberalism had muscles. So, it's new things you're coming across. But that choice has to be there, but it has to be an informed choice.
Definitely. I mean, you've talked a little bit about educating ourselves and increasing the dialogue that we have with non-Muslims. How else can Muslim communities challenge this sort of, stereotyping and this judging from educational institutions? If it did become widespread, how can we challenge this?
I think there has to be an educational response, an educated response, an informed response. I mean, I was just last night I was going through this debate, and there were lots of videos made and, spooky videos, etc. I don't think that is a route down to sort of dealing with this issue. It is, we should be more informed about what British values are, what Islam is, what culture is, what young people's views are, and we should be responding according to an intellectual argument. This should be an intellectual debate. It should not be that, we're being told to do this and we should fight back. That fighting back has to be a sort of an intellectual argument. We've seen around the world force, etc., leads to particular communities being further marginalised.
Yeah.
So it's an intellectual argument, understand what it is, and take this forward in an intellectual manner. And if Amanda Spielman was listening, then please rethink the British values and your response under these British values, because, British values are very vague. Lots of different people say lots of different things, and it suggests cultural conformity.
Yeah.
But we're not one culture in Britain. We're a multicultural society, and that's the advantage and a plus point about Britain. But if we were to conform, I don't know what type of society we'll become. It's quite dangerous.
Yeah, it's scary to think of, isn't it? Well, we've got a couple of minutes left, Samina, so I don't know if you wanted to just do a quick sum up of what you've said, your last thoughts. on the topic?
My last thoughts are that this is a cog in a bigger picture. The recent hijab ban, the ban on fasting is being suggested. I think these issues the education system is a secular system, so it's thought there's no space for religion within the public sphere. However, most of the schools are based on Christian ethos. There is an assembly, whether schools choose to or not to. It is largely based on Christianity. And when people have different thoughts, religious practices, etc., it's good that schools are allowing this. The education system allows for these differences. But why are then these differences now being marginalised? Why are young people, why is the education institution that's meant to be a safe haven for young people, it's being used to identify radicalisation? The Prevent agenda is basically around identifying young people who could be on a pathway to radicalisation at school. I mean, the schools are where most of these referral pathways are coming from. I think we as a Muslim community should be more educated in what's happening around us, open to ideas, and we are part of Britain.
Definitely.
And we are here to stay, and we need our voices to be heard and represented.
Absolutely. Very well said, Samina. Thank you so much. Thanks very much for joining me today, and thank you also to the listeners for tuning in. Do tune in again next week to Parenting Matters. That's on Wednesdays with myself, Safura Horton, from 1 to 2 p.m. Assalamu alaikum.
Stay tuned to Salaam Radio after this short ad break.